This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information and to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Dear Enemy by Jean Webster, Part 20. The John Grier Home, Saturday. Dear Enemy, you were so terribly gruff last night when I tried to thank you for giving my boys such a wonderful day that I didn't have the chance to express half the appreciation I felt. What on earth is the matter with you, Sandy? You used to be a tolerably nice man, in spots. But these last 3 or 4 months you've only been nice to other people, never to me. We have had from the first a long series of misunderstandings and foolish contretemps, but after each one we seemed to reach a solider basis of understanding, until I thought our friendship was on pretty firm foundation, capable of withstanding any reasonable shock. Then came that unfortunate evening last June when you overheard some foolish impolitenesses, which I did not in the slightest degree mean, and from then on you faded into the distance. Really, I have felt terribly bad about it, and have wanted to apologize, but your manner has not been inviting of confidence. It isn't that I have any excuse or explanation to offer. I haven't. You know how foolish and silly I am on occasions, but you will just have to realize that though I'm flippant and foolish and trivial on top, I'm pretty solid inside, and you've got to forgive the silly part. The Pendletons knew that long ago, or they wouldn't have sent me up here. I've tried hard to pull off an honest job, partly because I wanted to justify their judgment, partly because I was really interested in giving the poor little kiddies their share of happiness. But mostly, I actually believe, because I wanted to show you that your first derogatory opinion of me was ill-founded. Won't you please expunge that unfortunate 15 minutes at the porte cochere last June, and remember instead the 15 hours I spent reading the Killiac family? I would like to feel we're friends again. Sallie McBride. The John Grier Home, Sunday. Dear Dr. MacRae, I am in receipt of your calling card with an 11-word answer to my letter on the back. I didn't mean to annoy you by my attentions. What you think and how you behave are really matters of extreme indifference to me. Be just as impolite as you choose. S. McB. December 14th. Dear Judy, please pepper your letters with stamps inside and out. I have 30 collectors in the family. Since you've taken to travel, every day about post time an eager group gathers at the gate, waiting to snatch any letters of foreign design, and by the time the letters reach me they are almost in shreds through the tenacity of rival snatchers. Tell Jervis to send some more of those purple pine trees from Honduras, likewise the green parrots from Guatemala. I could use a pint of them. Isn't it wonderful to have gotten these apathetic little things so enthusiastic? My children are getting to be almost like real children. B dormitory started a pillow fight last night of its own accord, and though it was very wearying to our scant supply of linen, I stood by and beamed, and even tossed a pillow myself. Last Saturday, those 2 desirable friends of Percy's spent the whole afternoon playing with my boys. They brought up 3 rifles, and each man took the lead of a camp of Indians, and passed the afternoon in a bottle-shooting contest, with a prize for the winning camp. They brought the prize with them, an atrocious head of an Indian painted on leather. Dreadful taste, but the men thought it lovely, so I admired it with all the ardor I could assume. When they had finished, I warmed them up with cookies and hot chocolate, and I really think the men enjoyed it as much as the boys. They undoubtedly enjoyed it more than I did. I couldn't help being in a feminine twitter all the time the firing was going on for fear somebody would shoot somebody else. But I know that I can't keep 24 Indians tied to my apron strings, and I never could find in the whole wide world 3 nicer men to take an interest in them. Just think of all that healthy, exuberant volunteer service going to waste under the asylum's nose. I suppose the neighborhood is full of plenty more of it, and I'm going to make it my business to dig it out. What I want most are about 8 nice, pretty, sensible young women to come up here 1 night a week and sit before the fire and tell stories while the chicks pop corn. I do so want to contrive a little individual petting for my babies. You see, Judy, I'm remembering your childhood, and I'm trying hard to fill in the gaps. The trustees' meeting last week went beautifully. The new women are most helpful, and only the nice men came. I am happy to announce that the Honorable Cy Wyckoff is visiting his married daughter in Scranton. I wish she would invite Father to live with her permanently. Wednesday. I'm in the most childish temper with the doctor, and for no definite reason. He keeps along in his even, unemotional way without paying the slightest attention to anything or anybody. I have swallowed more slights during these last few months than in the whole of my life before, and I'm developing the most shockingly revengeful nature. I spend all of my time planning situations in which he will be terribly hurt and in need of my help, and which I, with the utmost callousness, will shrug my shoulders and turn away. I'm growing into a person entirely foreign to the sweet, sunny young thing you used to know. Evening. Do you realize that I am an authority on the care of dependent children? Tomorrow I and other authorities visit officially the Hebrew Sheltering Guardian Society's orphan asylum at Pleasantville. Oh, that's its name. It's a terribly difficult and roundabout journey from this point, involving a daybreak start and 2 trains and an automobile. But if I'm to be an authority, I must live up to the title. I'm keen about looking over other institutions and gleaning as many ideas as possible against our own alterations next year, and this Pleasantville Asylum is an architectural model. I acknowledge now, upon sober reflection, that we were wise to postpone extensive building operations until next summer. Of course I was disappointed, because it meant that I won't be at the center of the ripping up, and I do so love to be at the center of ripping ups. But anyway, you'll take my advice, even though I'm no longer an official head? The 2 building details we did accomplish are very promising. Our new laundry grows better and better. It has removed us from that steamy smell so dear to asylums. The farmer's cottage will finally be ready for occupancy next week. All it now lacks is a coat of paint and some doorknobs. But oh dear, another bubble has burst. Miss Turnfelt, for all her comfortable figure and sunny smile, hates to have children messing about. They make her nervous. And as for Turnfelt himself, though industrious and methodical and an excellent gardener, still, his mental processes are not quite what I had hoped for. When he first came, I made him free of the library. He began at the case nearest the door, which contains 37 volumes of Pansy's works. Finally, after he'd spent 4 months on Pansy, I suggested a change and sent him home with Huckleberry Finn. But he brought it back in a few days and shook his head. He said that after reading Pansy, everything else seems tame. I'm afraid I shall have to look around for someone a little more up and coming. But at least compared with Sterry, Turnfelt is a scholar. And speaking of Sterry, he paid us a social call a few days ago in quite a chastened frame of mind. It seems that the rich city feller whose estate he has been managing no longer needs his services, and Sterry has graciously consented to return to us and let the children have gardens if they wish. I kindly, but convincingly, declined his offer. Friday. I came back from Pleasantville last night with a heart full of envy. Please, Mr. President, I want some gray stucco cottages with Luca della Robbia figures baked in the front. They have nearly 700 children there, all sizable youngsters. Of course that makes a different problem from my 107, ranging from babyhood up, but I borrowed from their superintendent several fancy ideas. I'm dividing my chicks into big and little sisters and brothers, each big one to have a little one to love and help and fight for. Big sister Sadie Kate has to see that little sister Gladiola always has her hair neatly combed and her stockings pulled up, and knows her lessons, and gets a touch of petting and her share of candy. Very pleasant for Gladiola, but especially developing for Sadie Kate. Also, I'm going to start among our older children a limited form of self-government such as we had in college. That will help fit them to go out in the world and govern themselves when they get there. This shoving children out in the world at the age of 16 seems terribly merciless. 5 of my children are ready to be shoved, but I can't bring myself to do it. I keep remembering my own irresponsible, silly young self, and wondering what would have happened to me if I had been turned out to work at the age of 16. I must leave you now to write an interesting letter to my politician in Washington, and it's hard work. What have I to say that will interest a politician? I can't do anything more but babble about babies, and he wouldn't care if every baby was swept from the face of the earth. Oh, yes, he would, too. I'm afraid I'm slandering him. Babies, at least boy babies, grow into voters. Goodbye, Sallie. Dearest Judy, if you expect a cheerful letter from me the day, don't read this. The life of man is a wintry road. Fog, snow, rain, slush, drizzle, cold, such weather, such weather! And you in dear Jamaica with the sunshine and the orange blossoms. We've got whooping cough, and you can hear us whoop when you get off the train 2 miles away. We don't know how we got it. Just one of the pleasures of institution life. Cook has left, in the night. What the Scotch call a moonlight flitting. I don't know how she got her trunk away, but it's gone. The kitchen fire went with her. The pipes are frozen. The plumbers are here, and the kitchen floor is all ripped up. One of the horses has the spavin, and to crown it all, our cheery, resourceful Perry is down, down, down in the depths of despair. We have not been quite certain for 3 days past whether we could keep him from suicide. The girl in Detroit, I knew she was a heartless little minx, without so much as going through the formality of sending back his ring, has gone and married herself to a man in a couple of automobiles and a yacht. It is the best thing that could have ever happened to Percy, but it will be a long, long time before he realizes it. We have had to bring our 24 Indians back in the house with us. I am sorry to have to bring them in, but the shacks were scarcely planned for winter quarters. I have stowed them away very comfortably, however, thanks to the spacious iron verandas surrounding our new fire escape. It was a happy idea of Jervis's to have them glassed in for sleeping porches. The baby's sun parlor is a wonderful addition to our nursery. We can fairly see the little tots bloom under the influence of all that extra air and sunshine. With the return of Indians to civilized life, Percy's occupation was ended, and he was supposed to remove himself to the hotel. But he didn't want to remove himself. He has gotten used to orphans, he says, and would miss not seeing them about. I think the truth is that he is feeling so miserable over his wrecked engagement that he is afraid to be alone. He needs something to occupy every waking moment out of banking hours, and goodness knows we're glad enough to keep him. He's been wonderful with these youngsters, and they need a man's influence. But what on earth to do with the man? As you discovered last summer, this spacious chateau does not contain a superabundance of guest rooms. He's finally fitted himself into the doctor's laboratory, and the medicines have moved themselves to a closet down the hall. He and the doctor fixed it up between them, and if they are willing to be mutually inconvenienced, I have no fault to find. Mercy! I have just looked at the calendar, and it's the 18th, with Christmas only a week away. However shall we finish all our plans in a week? The chicks are making presents for one another, and something like 1,000 secrets have been whispered in my ear. Snow last night. The boys have spent the morning in the woods gathering evergreens and drawing them home on sleds, and 20 girls are spending the afternoon in the laundry, winding wreaths for the windows. I don't know how we're going to do our washing this week. We were planning to keep the Christmas tree a secret, but fully 50 children have been boosted up to the carriage house window to take a peep at it, and I'm afraid the news is spread among the remaining 50. At your insistence, we have sedulously fostered the Santa Claus myth, but it doesn't meet with much credence. Why didn't he ever come before? Was Sadie Kate's skeptical question. But Santa Claus is undoubtedly coming this time. I asked the doctor, out of politeness, to play the chief role at our Christmas tree, and being certain ahead of time that he was going to refuse, I had already engaged Percy as an understudy. But there is no counting on a Scotchman. Sandy accepted with unprecedented graciousness, and I had to privately unengage Percy. Tuesday. Isn't it funny the way some inconsequential people have of pouring out whatever happens to be churning about in their minds at the moment? They seem to have no residue of small talk, and are never able to dismiss a crisis in order to discuss the weather. This is apropos of a call I received today. A woman had come in to deliver her sister's child, sister in a sanatorium for tuberculosis. We to keep the child until the mother is cured, though I fear, from what I hear, that will never be. But anyway, all the arrangements had been made, and the woman had merely to hand the little girl in and retire. But having a couple hours between trains, she intimated a desire to look about, so I showed her the kindergarten rooms and the little crib that Lily will occupy, and our yellow dining room with its frieze of bunnies, in order that she might report as many cheerful details as possible to the poor mother. After this, as she seemed tired, I socially asked her to walk to my parlor and have a cup of tea. Dr. MacRae, being at hand and in a hungry mood, a rare state for him, he now condescends to a cup of tea with the officers of this institution about twice a month, came too, and we had a little party. The woman seemed to feel that the burden of entertainment rested upon her, and by way of making conversation she told us that her husband had fallen in love with a girl who sold tickets at the moving picture show. A painted, yellow-haired thing who chewed gum like a cow was her description of the enchantress. And he spent all of his money on the girl and never came home except when he was drunk. Then he smashed the furniture something awful. An easel with her mother's picture on it that she'd had since before she was married, he had thrown down just for the pleasure of hearing it crash. And finally she'd gotten too tired to live, so she drank a bottle of swamp root because somebody told her it was poison if you took it all at once. But it didn't kill her. It only made her sick. And he came back and said he would choke her if she ever tried that on him again. So she guessed he must still care something for her. All this quite casually while she stirred her tea. I tried to think of something to say, but it was a social exigency that left me dumb. But Sandy rose to the occasion like a gentleman. He talked to her beautifully and sanely, and sent her away actually uplifted. Our Sandy, when he tries, can be exceptionally nice, particularly to people who have no claim upon him. I suppose it is a matter of professional etiquette, part of a doctor's business to heal the spirit as well as the body. Most spirits appear to need it in this world. My caller has left me needing it. I've been wondering ever since what I should do if I married a man who deserted me for a chewing-gum girl, and who came home and smashed the bric-a-brac. I suppose, judging from the theaters this winter, that it is a thing that might happen to anyone, particularly in the best society. You ought to be thankful you've got Jervis. There's something awfully certain about a man like him. The longer I live, the surer I am that character is the only thing that counts. But how on earth can you ever tell? Men are so good at talking. Goodbye, and a Merry Christmas to Jervis and both Judys. S. McB. P.S. It would be a pleasant attention if you could answer my letters a little more promptly. End of Part 20.